What's up, YouTube? Ronders here. We got a gate project, a little modification here. A client had this gate custom built and installed years ago, and hasn't been super happy with it for a handful of reasons, and you'll see that throughout this video here. But we start with just taking off the middle design. That was originally a big monogram, and it was a 1/4 inch steel, so heavy stuff. And when the gates closed, it was just kind of flapping and making clanging noise, and it just wasn't the strongest way of supporting that much heavyweight steel. So we cut all that off. And right now we're working on these circles. I cut all this stuff back a little bit. Probably 2/3 of this gate is original, and I'm just kind of modifying this front third. I'm using an angle grinder and a cutoff wheel because that's usually the fastest and easiest way of just kind of chopping everything out. Bandsaw or plasma would be a little tricky or messy, so cutoff wheel is best for this here. And you can see I'm doing this side, and I basically do the exact same to the opposite side. And while I'm doing this, boggling my head with these numbers, because both gates have end points, and some of them, you started to think they should be 116 inches, and then we get into tight detail, and numbers are off a little bit. So that's why sometimes it's questionable whether it's easier to just build a brand new project or try and rework someone else's work. But we got this one figured out. You can see I'm just putting a long vertical bar on the front of this gate. I'm taking a middle design that's split up into each side of the gates. That way they're two separate entities, and the only alignment we need to worry about is right down the middle. So we did that. We found out those wacky numbers. We kind of cut everything back accordingly and fit that in. And then the client didn't want the monogram at all anymore. They wanted to completely change it up. So we found a design they were happy with. It was a fairly well-known Polish design, and I think it turned out pretty cool. I just finished up all these welds here. And here is the main reason the client called me up, was the hinge just was not working anymore. And sure enough, you find out that the grease fitting was actually broken, and so there was no grease getting in there anytime anything got greased up. And so if there's no grease, then there's water. And sure enough, that's what happened. This little hinge filled up with water and just rusted this pin out so much that it just stopped moving. I could barely do it with the wrench. When it was actually installed, it would move, but it was tight and it would squeak like no other. So we got that pulled apart, cleaned up, new grease fitting put on, and it's moving like butter now. But it took a little bit to actually get it off. As you can see, I stopped trying to get it off at that point. Just moved on to some other things. and told myself we'll get back to that hinge later. And here we're just flat grinding some welds, making everything smooth and ready for its paint. And while we're doing all that, I do want to shout out to my client and my buddy who actually turned me over to them. I appreciate the work. Anytime I get a chance to work some magic for a new client, I'm definitely excited to do that, especially a challenge like this. And here by this point we are fitting in some new bars, trying to make it look like this design was always meant to be there. Here we start finally getting our design in there. I went with the thinner gauge steel and doubled everything up. That way we still got that same weight effect of some thick metal without adding a couple 100 pounds to the end of this gate. Wanted to keep as much new weight off of those hinges as possible. We came in here, we welded the back sides. And we got to welding the rest of that up. And here we are finally addressing this hinge. I tried some heat, tried some lubricants, tried to do anything possible to get it off, and the best result was to finally just cut it off. We cut it off and we refabricated that hinge and cleaned everything up so it was working nice and smooth. Put a new grease zerk in there and that was all good to go. Now this design that I'm doing in the middle is, it has kind of three central parts. It's like a stem at the top, and then a flower bud of a sort, and then sort of a tail. And it can vary through the designs and years and people that have made it. It's all a little different, but for the most part they all have those three designs. So I carried that tail down into the bottom portion, and you'll see coming up here I fit wood into that. So there's a wood detail all along the bottom. Just getting everything fit on here. Make sure our numbers are correct and everything's mirrored properly. And then you gotta do it again for the other side. And after checking, it magically lined up just fine. Numbers are an amazing thing when you use them. Here, we're getting the other side all tacked in and welded up. You can see how double layering them with a little gap like that all of a sudden gives it about like a 1-inch spacing. And once we turn them vertically, they really look like they are actually a thick piece. That's pretty cool. Little illusion to the eye. Adding weight without adding weight. And here we just sprayed everything down with an oil-based enamel. And I really like powder coat, but enamel coating is one of the most rugged things I've ever experienced. You can drag this thing around once it's dry. You give it about a day or two to really cure. And after that point, and you can drag it across concrete and you might not scratch it. And here's a lot of the work that went into it is just fitting these wood pieces. I wish I could tell you I just made a template and just made 40 pieces of this, but there's 10 pieces across and each one is just slightly a little different. And we go back to, is it easier to build a brand new gate or work with somebody else's numbers? Unfortunately, those bends, with bending steel, there's usually a reaction that happens where it starts going, if you're bending horizontally, it's going to start moving vertically as well without your control. And sure enough, these things were kind of twisted all over the place. So it took all 40 pieces of being custom fit. Luckily I got my sander in there and was able to kind of production house it out. Things were even a little slightly different from the front to the back side of it. That added a little bit of excitement there. When I say this is a custom fit, it is truly custom fit. So these wood pieces all ended up getting my favorite treatment, which is shibari. We actually burn it. And so burning it brings the sugar up to the surface of the wood and actually cures it. And it also gives a really cool, sort of an ebony look to it, but it's also not just a flat black. But what it does is it actually makes it sort of waterproof. It if you were in a fire-prone area, it even sort of helps in that aspect, where it's harder to start on fire than just a raw piece of wood. And it's a Japanese practice, but I like it a lot. It's a really nice way of finishing off the wood. You can see here I got them all custom fit and organized into stacks. And then we hit them with the torch. And you basically burn it until it starts to what they call alligator skin. And it really puts a lot of char on the surface, and you kind of, you just hit up the ends here, and then eventually it came through, and I just hit both faces of each piece and moved it along. It's a really smart way of treating your exterior woods. I mean, they shouldn't need to treat these wood pieces for quite a few years here. And even then, you can see after we burn and wire brush them a little bit, we slap some oil onto them, some penetrating oil, and they cure up real nice and hard and super waterproof. And I apply a little paste wax to each and every one, and that's all they're going to need. I mean, in a few years they could get another layer of paste wax, and that's going to completely rejuvenate them and have them fresh as new. So I really love that treatment. Works out well, especially for these external items like a gate. You don't want to be maintaining every year, so really smart way of doing it. And here we start to finally fit them all in. And even that was a little challenge, because as organized as I thought we were, turns out I still had them mixed up a little bit. But eventually we got it in, and I put some metal rod down and actually welded it in place. So those pieces, they are glued and wired in there. There's not a chance they're going to be moving anytime soon, unless you cut that metal out. And here we are finally on install. What I had to do was come in and actually grind out all of these original welds. I found out when I took the gates originally that these welds were filled with a lot of slag inclusions, and a lot of them were actually missing welds. There was very little penetration, so I just came in, I cut everything out and just re-welded it. That way the client doesn't need to worry about these things falling off, because they were originally pretty risky mounting, and there was a chance that they could have fallen off. A little too much torque and they would have snapped right off of that base plate. It's always a little risky doing this, because I don't actually know what exactly is behind that base plate. But I lucked out, and they welded up just fine. It looked like it was about a 1/4 inch plate, so the welds went in well. It's good penetration, and kind of dressed everything up and painted them. Went back to them. Now, unfortunately, I don't have the actual lift of the gate. That was a little funny with 3 guys. First gate, we got the bottom hinge in and missed the top hinge, and so now it was wedged, and had to get the jack out and lift it up off the posts. And there was about probably 1 minute, but it felt like 10 minutes of running to the truck, grabbing the jack, lifting the gate out. But luckily we all got it, and it sat in its hinge just perfectly. A really huge shout out to Nick and his crew over at Haven Landscape Contractors. They do a bang up job, and came in as a huge help getting that gate positioned and all of that. I'll leave the link in the description. If you're looking for some cool stuff in the Chicagoland area for your patio, your outdoor areas, I highly suggest you go check them out. Haven Landscape Contractors on Instagram. Give them a follow. They do some awesome work. And here I'm just finishing up these last welds and dressing them for some paint. I gotta wait for them to cool and then get them painted up. I also had to come back and clean up all that stone that I sooted up with my welding, but that wasn't too bad. Wire brush cleaned it right up. And here I am over on that other side. That's the plate I'm working on right now on the bottom. That's the one that broke off when I took the gate, and that's what made me concerned about all of the hinge welds. So that's what prompted me to just redo everything. Came in with that one. I didn't weld the hinge block. I needed that gate installed first. I didn't want anything misaligned. So we waited with that one, came up top, and we welded that up. All of these I'm coming in with a 6011 rod for the root pass and covering that all up with a 7018, really locking it all in and also making it look good. And here I'm getting that hinge knocked back into place, and lucked out that the shimming, I just mimicked the original installer for the shim on the back of that hinge block, and it fit up perfectly. Exactly where that hinge fell is where the gate needed to be aligned from top to bottom, right in the middle, so that worked out flawlessly. Came in, got that welded up, dressed for some paint, and kind of made all of our last little touch-ups. Here, just finishing up these last welds and getting it dressed up a little bit, ready for paint. I gotta let them cool down before we paint them, so that's one of the last things we do here. Shout out to my sister. She came out to help me put in the fit and finish. A little spot painting here and there, and kind of just washed it all down and got our fingerprints off. Got that all locked in and finished up, and cleaned up the area, and we kind of toss this gate around after I grease all those joints up. Make sure everything's moving nice and buttery smooth. Got everything lined back up with the closers and ready for the gate guys to get those connected back in and unlocked. the client can finally start using the gate again. And sure enough, one of the last aspects is, does the middle align? And yes, lines up perfectly. And we're all good to go. I want to thank my clients for trusting me through this process. It's never easy going through this the first time, let alone a second time with a different person. So it means the world to me that you trust me to finish it out the way you were anticipating. And thank you guys for watching this video. If you want to see more, make sure you like and subscribe, and I will make sure I keep my camera on while I'm working. We'll see you on the next one.